Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Danny, and I'm the event planner for the New York Reactor Space. Before we start, I have a few things to go over. Please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We seek to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional, and on topic. Useful links will be shared in the chat. The session is recorded and will be available on demand 24 to 48 hours on the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel. Which brings us to today's session. It'll run for approximately 1 hour with time for questions throughout. I will now turn it over to our speaker for introductions.
All right, thank you so much, Danny. And hello, everybody. Welcome to Model Mondays. This is the launch of a new series, a weekly series that'll happen Mondays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and will run for the next 8 weeks. And we have a very simple goal. We want to help you navigate the fast-moving space of generative AI models. And we actually have a few resources to help you. Don't worry about the slide, you'll get them later. But this is the live stream you're on. We also have a Discord. We'd love to have you join that to continue the conversation. And most importantly, go to ak.ms/modelmondays for a repo where we will make sure we have all the resources available to you at the end of this chat. But first, my name is Nitya Narasimhan. I'm a senior AI advocate on the developer relations team at Microsoft. And I want to take a minute to introduce my partner in crime, Sharmila. Hi, Sharmila.
Hi, Nitya. Thank you so much for that introduction. And hey, everyone. I'm Sharmila, and I'm on the product marketing team. And I work pretty much on all the model launches that comes to Model Catalog and Azure AI Foundry. And I work closely with Nitya, and we are excited to bring these models to you. And we are hoping to see you every week and continue the conversations and make it more interactive.
Yeah, and just a sneak peek at what's coming over the next 8 weeks. We've actually tried to pick out a bunch of models and model categories that I think are really kind of popular right now. So keep an eye out for that. Go to the GitHub repo to get individual links to register. But for a quick second, every one of these episodes is going to be structured in 2 big segments. First, we'll answer the question, what just happened in the last week in generative AI models? And then we'll deep dive into a single model, put it in the spotlight, and make you understand what's happening. So, Sharmila, what are you going to have for us in the roundup section today?
Oh, yeah. I'm excited to talk about the roundup. So just as Nitya said, the first section is the roundup, where we are going to talk about 5 things that happened in the world of models that happened in the last week. And today's roundup, we have 5 exciting models that I want to talk about. But even before I go into it, I just want to set the context here. Like model launches, like last year, if you think about it, it was like every 4 to 6 months, we had a new model that came up. But now the pace has picked up so much that every 4 to 6 days, we are coming up with a new model. And this innovation is great, but at the same time, it's a little chaotic and confusing. Like, what model should we use? What is our choice? And what are the different models out there? So we are hoping to, through this roundup, to give you that quick snapshot into what happened in the model world, so that you can get that 5-minute information. And then later, when we do the deep dive, you will have more relevance on what model works for you and what choice you need to, or what model you need to pick. So let's go to the next slide. Yep. So the first set of models that I want to talk about this week is our very own Phi family of models. Now, as you might all know, we have a Microsoft research wing, and we have a lot of great models that comes out of that side of our business. And now, and since last year, we've been launching all these small language models, which comes under the Phi family, and that has got a lot of great recognition and adoption, just because it's a very small language model, but then for its size, it exceeds its performance. And in that category, just last week, we launched the 5.4 family of models, both 5.4 multimodal and 5.4 mini. And 5.4 multimodal, the best part is it's both visual and audio model, and it does speech, text, and image processing. And it's good. It uses a technique called cross-model learning, and it's optimized for on-device execution. And also, it is good for scenarios where, in like edge AI applications where you have like unstable network connections, and also in places where confidentiality matters a lot. It's good to use these five family of models. And also, one of the good things about this 5.4 multimodal is it outperforms even like very popular multimodal models like Whisper V3 and Seamless M40 V2 Large on automatic speech recognition and speech translation. And another notable thing is this particular model was in the top position in Hugging Face leaderboard last week with a word error rate of 6.14%, which exceeded what was the standard before, which was 6.25%. And it's also good for speech summarization, and it is seen to outperform even GPT-4o on speech summarization. And 5.4 mini, it's also good for like fine tuning and customization, making it more easier and affordable. Like especially when you think about fine tuning and customizing large models, affordability becomes a big issue. So 5.4 mini helps with that. Now let's go on to the next one, which is our, again, kind of piggybacking on the Microsoft research topic. We have our very own research. Like we introduced again last week, the Azure AI Foundry Labs, where it's our research team bringing cutting edge models to everyone, to like developers, to researchers, to even like startup founders and enterprise customers, bringing them that bleeding edge of AI innovation where they can immediately try out something and prototype it using these experimental research and speed up the time to market, because that's what innovation is all about. And giving these cutting edge models to to everyone, we are exposing the the best in class models, but then at the same time speeding the time to from prototype to production. And through Microsoft research, we have 6 new models that came out, starting from like atmospheric models, multi-agent models, atomistic simulation models, and even drug design models. So let's play the video real quick, just a quick 40-second video, and you will get more information on what this Foundry Labs is about. Awesome. Now let's move on to our third model of the day, which is, okay, I'm just waiting for the slide to update. Yes, that's the next category of models I want to talk about is the Cohere re-rank model. Again, we launched this last week, the Cohere re-rank 3.5, which is an upgrade to the re-rank 3, which we launched last year. And the best thing about these re-rank models, it improves search relevance and by dynamic query time analysis, and it can optimize all information retrieval workflows in like finance, healthcare, and e-commerce, where accurate and efficient search functionality is super critical. And also, the reason why re-rank models are better than the general search methods that are out there is because it considers semantic meaning It considers user intent and the business rules to optimize search. And it also, one particular notable thing about Cohere Re-Rank 3.5 is that it understands more than 100 different languages. And this is very relevant, especially in a very data siloed world where language barrier is kind of becomes a very crucial thing. And when companies are trying to make like enterprise search global, this re-rank model kind of levels the playing field for even non-English markets. And it is actually 23 point, as per as per Cohere, it's 23.4% better than typical hybrid search. And let's go on to the next model. Of course, the next model I want to talk about. I'm pretty sure anyone in the model world would be knowing this this model provider, DeepSeek. They have taken the whole model industry by storm, like disrupting what we traditionally thought of in the kind of large language model space in terms of like compute capacity and price to performance ratio. I don't want to go too much into this model just because I'm guessing this is being top of mind for many folks out there. But what I want to talk about is that we have in the Azure AI Foundry model catalog, we have both DeepSeek V3 and DeepSeek R1. And again, the idea behind that is to make sure model catalog, which is an AI Foundry, it becomes like the central marketplace for you to grab any model, be it the next cutting edge model or a very domain specific model, or a use case specific model or an industry specific model. We have all that in the model catalog, and we want to make sure you get the best when you come to AI Foundry model catalog. And of course, Nithya, in the next segment, she's going to talk more about how to access all these models. So I'm not going to go into that. Now let's go to the next final model of the day, which is the stability AI models. Again, a few weeks back, we launched this model. This was our first image to image model in the model catalog, which is the Stable Diffusion 3.5 large. Along with it, we also launched Stable Image Ultra and Stable Image Core. Of course, these are the best thing about this image to image model is you can give an input image and give a prompt. For example, the image that you see there with the Easter bunny holding a egg, where you give the prompt of change that input image to a bunny, which is a bronze, like that of a bronze pendant, holding a metallic Easter egg. And that's what you see in the second image. And the third image, the same prompt, we changed it to like use, instead of a bronze pendant, make it a carved wooden pendant. And that's what you see in the third image. So kind of doing those kind of changing in style and content, updating the content a little bit. That's what you get through these image to image models. And that's kind of wrapping up the 5 top models that you would want to think about. And all these are available in the Azure AI Foundry model catalog. Going on, handing it over to Nithya. Nithya, do you have any questions of what we just talked?
No, but I will say, and I know we have a lot to cover, but I will say that I'm super excited about the 2 things there. So I actually want to put the slide back up, because if you go on all of these, there's a little QR code. If you go there, it'll take you directly to the catalog, so you can go check out the model. I am excited about visual generative AI. I can't wait for the kind of like deep dive spotlight that we get on this. And of course, reasoning models are coming up next week, so I'm not going to say much about them right now. But thanks so much, Harmila. And now I want to dive into GitHub Models, right? So far, you've kind of got a sense of, look, there's so many models dropping, and this was just in the last week. And over the next 8 weeks, we'll go into details of one model at a time. But how do you get skilled up? What if you could start working with models and all you needed was a GitHub account? Welcome to GitHub Models Marketplace. In this segment, we're going to look at what GitHub Models Marketplace is and how you can get started on a prompt to prototype journey using just your GitHub profile. So all you need for this is a GitHub account and a browser. If you want to follow along with me, go ahead, log into your GitHub account right now and go to that URL at the bottom, which is github.com/marketplace/models. And let me see if I can actually pull up my browser while I'm at it. And then we're going to walk through. So here I am. And what I'm going to do is I'd set some of this stuff up. Hopefully it'll still stay alive. But what you're going to do is if you go into GitHub Marketplace Models, you'll get a screen like this. And you'll notice that I'm logged in with my kind of personal account here. So what you see is what you get. Now, what I want to do is help you walk through a story of like, what does it mean when you're building an application? The very first thing you want to do is discover the right model for you. How can you do that in the GitHub Model Marketplace? So the first thing you want to do is go in there and explore the model catalog. So if you go to that, you'll see it says select a model. And if you drop this down, you'll actually see at the bottom something that says view all models. So just keep in mind that you may not have access to all the models in the marketplace, but you can find out what exists. And you can use these filters. So I can say, Sharmila just mentioned Cohere. I'm like, I'd like to know what Cohere models are there. And wait, there are some models in here that will help me with my RAG-based approaches. Or perhaps I want to say, I'd like to know embeddings, right, for RAG. What models can I use for embeddings? And here you go. I might also be able to use other criteria, like I want to see models that have a large context window, perhaps a lot of data that I need to provide with my prompt, right? And you can do that too. But when you start trying to explore this on your own, remember right now, all you had is a GitHub account. You want to go back to that root page and then pick a model from here. So let me go back to where we were in the slides and say, we've discovered models. We know what's existing. Let's take one for a deep dive. So we're going to pick, and I'm going to go with GPT-4o. And mind you, I could have clicked one of these prompts to get there as well. And let's go ahead and say, explain the basics of machine learning, right? So now with zero effort on my part, all I've done is log in and go to that page. I'm able to go play with these models. And I didn't need anything. I didn't need an Azure account. I didn't need anything else. But I can intuitively get a sense of how this model works. Look, it's answering this question in great depth, right? Great. So we know how this works. But what's the next step? We've discovered models. But remember, there are many models in the GitHub Marketplace. What if I wanted to see which one was better among the choices? How can I compare two models? Well, the GitHub Model Marketplace has a feature for that. I know I've picked this one, and I want to see how does this perform compared to, I don't know, let's do DeepSeek for that, because you mentioned it, right? And when I do this, it actually sets me up with the same, with a kind of side-by-side comparison. I'm going to clear the chat history. But now I can do something really interesting. I can say, hey, explain the basics of machine learning, but watch closely. I click this, and both of them are synchronized on that prompt. And you can literally see side by side how they differ. GPT-4o is basically going off and answering the question the way it always does. DeepSeek is thinking through it. It's a reasoning model. And you can see it's thinking, okay, what are you trying to get at? Let me see what I should do. And it's plotting out it step by step. And if you kind of just watch for a few seconds, you'll see Open GPT-4o will be done and have a result for you. And DeepSeek will probably continue to think. Now, depending on your use case, one or the other might be better. For now, I just wanted to give you a sense of how that works. So let's stop this right now. And looking at it, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to go with GPT-4o for now. So let's go ahead and close this out. And we'll continue to work with this. So now you've seen feature number 2. I can compare two models in the playground. And by the way, I forgot to mention it, but you can actually see, how much time did it take, how much kind of tokens does it use up, etc. So once you've got to this stage and you've got an intuitive understanding, let's say you've decided, okay, I've compared them, I'm picking this one. What do you do next? Next, you want to start prototyping. So the test prompt that you put in there was something that was just there. But let's say you are now building an application, and your application is a pirate that's going to basically talk about the data in your enterprise retail store. Maybe that's your use case. What can you do? Remember that we picked this model. I'm going to go ahead and clear it. Now you can try out this really interesting feature in GitHub called Prompt Editor. What does Prompt Editor do? Prompt Editor actually starts up an app-like interface that kind of lets you engineer iteratively your prompt. So let's take a look at what that looks like. I already had a system prompt in there. I'm an assistant who speaks like a pirate. I respond in limericks. And I say your answer should be presented as short bulleted list with a maximum of 5 items. But I'm actually going to show you how this works first and then show you this really cool feature. So we can fill in our system prompt. And then I'm going to go ahead and say, let's go and run this. Oh, use this model. Oh, sorry. Give me a second. Looks like I need to update this again. Okay, I have to enter a question. So I'm going to say, tell me about the Eiffel Tower. Okay, and now it says run. So I've got myself a test prompt that reflects my application, and it followed my system prompt. But wait, remember I wanted to have this talk like a pirate, and this is an enterprise retailer selling tour bus tickets? I can do something really interesting. I can go ahead and create a variable. And when I do that, I can edit this variable and I can fill in the values. So I can say Notre Dame and Eiffel Tower as an example. And what this does for me, and when I save this, what this does for me is it gives me a standardized prompt now. And now if I run this, it's actually going to run this by putting those two variables or filling those variables in with the data in my stored value. Why is this useful? Because now I can switch my model to something else. I can take 4 mini, didn't do anything else, and I can go ahead and engineer this again. But I can do better. I can go and say, please improve this prompt and say, okay, how would you like to improve? I'd like to improve this by always end with R and ask a question, right? And if I improve this prompt, it says, do you want me to use this improved prompt? I say yes. Now when I go ahead and run it, I have got it to do exactly what I wanted it to do, and I've iterated the prompt right in my prompt editor. Now this is a super cool feature to help us kind of figure out iteratively how our application goes from that very basic prompt to where we start kind of engineering a prototype. Now I should also point out that if you go into the playground, you can go ahead and see the parameters and modify them as well. All right, so we've kind of got through the part where we've prototyped something. So I've got myself a very basic prompt. What do I do next? Because I'm not going to be able to ship this playground with my product, right? What I need is to move it to code. And this is where GitHub makes that even easier. So now I've gone ahead and I basically did my prompt editor. And I say, hey, I'd like to click use this model, and I'd like to actually get a code version of this. Can you make it happen? This is where there are two things. And I want to start one of them up because it takes a little while to start up. So let me see if it's still alive. If I actually click run code space, I had it running before, but it sometimes stops. Okay, it's still running. So we'll leave it here and come back. But I'll show you what it does. So when you come into this part, what you see is it says, okay, you've got this application, you wrote this. I can give you a code snippet, but you have an option. I can pick a language. Most of the standard languages are there. And I can pick an SDK. Remember, I'm using an OpenAI model. I can use the OpenAI SDK model, sure. And it's going to give me the code that I can start with. But I can also switch to something called the Azure AI Inference SDK. And the value for this is this is an abstraction that will work with all the models. So I can write my code once to the Azure AI Inference SDK, and it maps to the underlying SDKs. So it makes it easier for me to swap my models out later. But if I want to test this, I can just click run with code spaces, and it will launch a code space. Now for me, it says, would you like to resume the code space you already have? I already have it over here, so I'm going to let it go and stick with this. But now what I can do is I can actually take this, and fingers crossed that this will work. I can go ahead and pick up this code that it gives me. So let's go and try this out. Do you see that when I put this in here, it gives me some code that I can use? I can go ahead and copy this over into this code space. I think I might have a sample over here. So here's from the UI. And I can actually just, now before I go into how this works, I copy that code over and I can run it. So when I run it, now I kind of engineered my prompt in the playground, and I can come into a code space. And now in this code, you can see it's answering the question right here. So I literally just moved from a playground into a code in my VS Code editor. So I'm going to come back and talk to you a little bit about what that is. But the two things I wanted to take away is the Azure AI Inference SDK capability that this provides out of the box lets you de-risk your model choice. Second, by moving from here into code spaces, you can now switch models and do other things, and I'll show you that in a second. But last but not least, you will notice that there's actually a place where you can get a production key. At this point, you are still using GitHub Models, and GitHub Models does have rate limits. It's meant for you to kind of play with and understand how things work. But when you are ready to actually ship, you probably want to ship to a production environment that can give you additional guarantees. And this is where you can look at the Azure AI production key and follow through that wizard to actually move your code into Azure. But last but not least, let's see if we can actually get time. Let's see what I'm doing on time. I think I might have a few minutes. What do I do next? So over here, develop using the API. The last thing I want to show you, and we'll come back and talk about how this GitHub works if we have time, but I want to just show you one last thing. There are a couple more. You can take those QR codes off the bottom there to go look at it. GitHub also provides a couple of additional tools. So if you're like me, you might want to work with the CLI, or perhaps you like VS Code as an editor and you want to install the extension. They have a couple of tools on their documentation site that you can try out. Let's see if we can try the GitHub extension. What this lets you do is you can actually install the GitHub extension in your code spaces. I think I've already installed it ahead of time, so let me just make sure. So we can go ahead and pick that up. It says GH extension install. So I think I had actually installed it, and it'll tell you it's already there. And now I can actually ask it a question. So I can say, GH models run, pick a model, and then ask a question. So I can do this right here. So I can say, GH models run. I'm so bad at typing, so sorry. And then I can say GPT-4o, for example, and say, tell me about what are the popular attractions in Paris, right? And if we got this right, it basically allows us to get our prompt engineering done in the command line as well. So now, within the span of 15 minutes, we've gone from discovering a model on GitHub Marketplace, sorting through and comparing it with other models to see how it works for a typical prompt, taking it into a prompt editor and reinforcing and iterating on the prompt template, taking that into code, bringing the code into my code spaces. And now I can use code spaces as a development environment to continue working and orchestrating more complex workflows. Now, the power of this is actually through something called a fine-grained access token. Once you set up, you can follow those instructions in the docs. Once you set up a GitHub token, what I do is I basically have it provided access to all my AI project repositories. So it's one of the default environment variables in there. And now I can use GitHub models pretty much everywhere. So I think we have a couple of minutes. I know I went through this really rapidly, but I want to basically have you also follow up on two things. One, almost every model we have, we really want to emphasize that responsible AI matters. And so if you go into the GitHub documentation, you will find out what they're doing for responsible use of GitHub models. Next week, this was a rapid deep dive into GitHub models. Next week, we'll have Jennifer Marsman joining us to talk about reasoning models. She's going to do a deep dive into O1 and look at things like DeepSeek and give you a sense of what reasoning models are and why you should use them and when you should not use them. But I'll leave you with one last thing before we go into Q&A. This was a fast spotlight introduction to GitHub models and Marketplace. But there's actually a lot more that I didn't even get to show you. For instance, there is actually an extensive set of samples that you can play with. You can basically go and look at the GitHub Codespaces template and look at OpenAI cookbooks. You can look at cookbooks for Azure AI Inference SDK. You have a whole lot of starter code to go from. If you'd be interested in seeing those in action, come join us at the office hours. So the conversation will be happening Friday. Join us on Discord. That's the second link in there. Come over to Discord. We'll hang out. I'm actually going to take my time there to go through this and figure out what works, what didn't, and answer questions. Let's play with prompts and figure out what we can do. And everything we talked about today, the resources will be available and that third URL, which is ak.ms/modelmondays. Keep an eye out for an update later today. And I know I went really, really fast, so I kind of missed all the questions. Let's get Sharmila back, and then we'll take a quick look at what kinds of questions are coming through. I can't actually see the comments right now. So was there anything? Yes.
There was a question around Playground. Is the Playground multimodal? And I see that Lee and David have been answering that. But if you have any anything you want to cover around Playground multimodality, please go ahead.
Oh, this is why I need to pre-record some of these. There was this really cool demo I wanted to show you where you can actually, if you pick, so if you're thinking of multimodality, right? You're saying, can I actually do things like maybe ask a question with an image? So I think, is this the one I think I'd shown? Let me see if I can do this live. So I can actually, for instance, upload an image and say, tell me what you see. Now, remember, we'll come back to this. If you go into the model catalog filter, you can actually go in and look at filter by capability. You can filter for which models are good for agents, which is good for multimodal, etc. But I wanted to give you a sense of how easy it is for you to like intuitively try to play with this, right? So here I gave it the same screenshot I put on the screen, and it's able to actually render it and say, oh, okay, these are the links I see. And I can kind of go off and have conversations around them. If you have specific questions, please do either put an issue in our GitHub repo or come over to Discord. This Friday, we will be hanging out 1:30 in the afternoon, Eastern time. But also there is a Model Mondays channel over there, and I'll be hopping over there after today to answer any other questions. And yeah, Sharmila, anything else I missed?
No, yeah, you did a great job covering everything. I think even though it was rapid, a lot of people found it pretty useful. So that's awesome. And yes, everyone, please keep coming back every Monday around the same time and join us in more sessions. There are going to be more interesting topics that we want to cover. And as Nitya said, please let us know either through the Discord channel or in comments here if what other topics you would like to see us cover.
Absolutely. And please do come hang out on Discord. I want to hear what you're doing, what you're working with, show and tell what you've kind of played with. Try out GitHub Models and give us feedback. And don't forget, sign up now because next week we'll be looking at reasoning models with Jennifer Marsman. And thank you all for joining us.
And Nitya, can you go back to the other slide with the QR code? Someone was asking, is there going to be did you mention office hours? Yes.
Yes. So this is the one slide that I would say is just screenshot and keep it. But the links at the bottom are there. The one source you want to go to is ak.ms/model-monday. If you like the series, please like it and like it for now. But I will be putting some of the examples that I did in there. So we'd love to have you fork and actually try those out yourself. Come to office hours to find out how. But yes, those are the 3 links. The live stream, that first link will take you to a series page where you'll know where the next episode is. Discord is where you can join to come chat with us. And the repo is where all these resources will be put in at the end of each day.
Yep. Awesome. This is great.
Awesome. Yeah, so thank you all very much. We hope you enjoyed it and look forward to seeing you on the next Model Mondays.
Ciao.